Today we have Lamin Touray, a British Gambian actor from
Yes,
Manchester.
yes,
And
yes. I love the fact you say British champion.
yeah, I have to put that in there. And he, along with many other students, last year spoke out on an open letter about the racist experiences that they had at the drama school Aura. So he's here today to speak about it, and we're going to get to know him a bit more and his history, and just have an interesting conversation.
Yeah, thank you for asking me on. I'm buzzing to be chatting to know our culture. It's a brilliant platform.
I obviously asked you the question about how you got the courage to speak out about this.
Mm,
You were studying at Alra for 3 years. Did you
mm.
ever feel like, okay, this is the time? Or like, when did you realize it was the right time? Because you said you always knew you wanted to speak out
Mm.
about it on a big scale.
Yeah, I mean, I left along with all of my friends, literally my peers in the year above, my year, some in the year below, with a real bitter taste in my mouth. And it was always going to be challenged. I'm not the type of person to just let a violation slide. But it was a deeper, it really, I spoke about it before. Like, I was only looking back now, it put me into a state of depression. I didn't realize at the time. I knew I was down or I was upset or angry or whatever, but I didn't realize the actual profound effect it had on me. And then speaking to other people who experienced the same things in our South, ours got two campuses. So it's got obviously the one in Wigan up north and then the one in London. So to realize that it was widespread and it wasn't just a personal experience for me and two or three of my other friends, it was like, nah, this has got to be dealt with. But I always just had a real driving energy and engine to succeed in my career. And I still do, but part of that reason was genuinely to get to the highest platform possible to then speak out and expose and highlight Aura. And actually, if you think of that, I guess that was like a coping mechanism in a sense for just like keeping that drive and going. And then when I get to this huge platform, whatever that may be, I can speak on it. But actually, the fact it's come out now, the fact that it was unity, there was solidarity, it was everyone. When George Floyd got killed, this is what I've said loads. Everyone reflected on their own experiences of racism, right? And most people, for me anyway, and for some of my friends, the worst experience they ever experienced was at Aula, was at a liberal drama school. So, which is shocking in itself that that's the word. I've had stuff in the street, I've had stuff on football pitches, I've had stuff on night outs, I've had, whatever. That's just overt standard racism, if you like. But systemic, educational, more deep-rooted, institutionalized racism has a much more lasting effect and it's a more damaging effect. So everyone just reflected on it. And as our generation do, we came to social media. And I like social media, don't get me wrong, but I've never been, when it was the Blackout Tuesday thing, I just come off social media for a few days because it was all just getting a bit like too much. It was like, this is crazy. Come back on Blackout Tuesday. And again, it triggered me because I thought, what is posting a little black square going to do? And I was judging people for doing it and I was judging people for not doing it because I was like, if you're scrolling down your timeline and all you're seeing is black squares, at least you're showing a bit of solidarity and going, we see you, we hear you, da 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 da. But it was just passive. And I was like, this isn't it. This is not it. So I just thought, I've got to write. I've got to just write. I'm not a writer, but I've just got to put something, articulate something, how I'm feeling. Spoke about, obviously, Aaron. And on that day, I said, listen, I'll touch on that when the time's right. My brother then tweeted a clip of that statement and atted Alra. And I thought, whoa, are you sure, bro? I was a bit like, is this the right time? Like, and he just did it. He just did it impulsively. My brother's quite good on social media. He's had social media accounts or whatever else. And I was a bit like, he didn't do it without my permission. He did it. And then I was like, all right, sweet. Let's see. And then I think someone else tweeted. And I thought, right, okay, let's take the shot. Now's the time. This is how we're feeling. Let's take the shot. And I put a statement out, a detailed statement out. And then so did a lot of my other friends. And they all got lots of traction and attention or whatever you want to call it, engagements. And the conversation started. And then naturally, obviously, the mainstream media then started to realise a pattern that there was lots of black and Asian students across the country, majority in London, because that's where most of the drama schools are, who've experienced atrocious, horrendous racism at the hands of these institutions. And that's where it all kind of started. But I remember literally hitting send on that tweet. You know, I wasn't really big on Twitter either, more of an Instagram, really. But hitting send and being like, shit, if this doesn't work, this is going to damage me. Because I've always, for 4 years or 3 years, whatever it is, since I graduated, been like, I'm going to talk on this when I'm ready. And I didn't necessarily feel like I was ready, but it had to come out. And like I said, people were reflecting, and it was a reflective time in June. And then, so the mainstream media covered it, and I remember thinking, right, what now? These schools are still tweeting as if they're not a part of the problem and they're going to be a part of the solution. And we're going to do everything. We're going to listen. And I think Alra said, and this was from the principal at the time, he said, we're going to listen, we're going to join the dots and listen, and we're going to reflect. And it was all nonsense, all nonsense. And they got brought into the conversation, luckily, Alra, in the Stage article, which was huge. It was their most read article of the year, last year. And then The Guardian covered it, BBC covered it, and whatever else. But I remember walking away thinking, we're not done. We've not achieved anything. Just because we've highlighted it or exposed it, so what? That's not what this was about. This wasn't for a bit of attention and a few likes on a tweet and, oh, it's awful. We need to change. We need to do that. So we went away up north, like I said to you in the written response. We do things differently. We don't just accept what's given to us. We'll go and get it and we'll fight for it. And we got organised and we connected with the students in the South, some of our peers who graduated the same year as us or the year before or the year after. And we spoke about collective experiences. And then the idea got birthed for the open letter. And at this point, we hadn't opened up communication with the school, I don't think. But a few of us wanted to go away and write individual detailed statements and kind of formal complaints, if you like, and to scrutinise their policies as a school and go, right, what are you doing? You've claimed now publicly on Twitter you're going to do this, this and this, and you've hired an external audit to investigate racism, which, by the way, Alra should be publishing an external audit a report on what they've done and what they're doing this month, and they've got about a day left, so I'm not sure what that is, but anyway. And this is the point, people say a lot and don't do things. So there was a handful of us who put really detailed individual statements. There was lots of conversations, back and forth phone calls, and then with my good friend Shay, who lives in London now but came up north, we just had a phone call and spoke about this open letter idea, and then it got birthed, and we just put together a number of quotes of what people experience, just truth and transparency. And seeing the names, which you've seen yourself, and the quotes, it's just shocking. And I remember seeing the document and thinking, that is damaging, but also powerful and hopefully emotive enough to shift something. So we sent it to the school and said, please understand that this will go public. Because we'd already gone public once, we thought, well, maybe we could do it again. We weren't sure. It was a bit of a threat, really, and a bit of a gamble. But we assumed and hoped that it would get the attention it needed again, if need be. So we sent it internally and said, please deal with this. Please understand the scale of this and how widespread it is. And listen to these voices. We weren't on the attack. We were just being human and saying, listen, you've got an issue, and this is what we're demanding. We had clear demands as well, which was really important. And there's still lots of schools and students around the country now. They need to go away, get organised and have demands. Because if you don't have those demands, you're not going to change anything. They can say we're changing this, or we're going to add this, or we're going to hire more staff, or we're going to do... So what? If there's figures in that school that shouldn't be there, demand that they're called out, and they're out. They're pulled out. You need to drag them out. Do everything in your power to get them out of those institutions. So we sent it them. And we got stone cold wall of silence. We didn't hear a thing for 8 weeks, maybe 9 weeks. The only time we heard something back from them was once we then triggered it and went public. It got to the August time, August 31st, I think it was, right at the end of the month. And we'd agreed, right, it's been long enough. They're taking the piss. Let's go public. And we did it again, and we had to hit send on that tweet. And that was a nervous moment, because it was a bit like, well, what if this isn't relevant anymore? What if this isn't trending anymore? What if this isn't on the agenda anymore? But it's still our stories, it's still our truth, and it still needs to be told. And then that tweet blew up even more, and the mainstream media got hold of that as well. And again, I've got to say, the Stage followed the story from day one, the middle and the end. They covered it with such detail, and they're an amazing publication and journalists, whatever thing they're called. But they smashed it because they gave us the platform to highlight it within the industry, and then other media people then covered it further afield. And ITV did a really, really detailed report, which actually I think was enough to then actually implement that change, which we were demanding. It was headline news in London, headline news in Manchester, or Granada Report, so the Northwest. I'm not sure what that covers, but the Northwest. And then we had to then go away and have meetings again and continue these painful conversations with the board, who clearly were split about, what we were saying. Some of them felt like, we've got a group of black students demanding we sack our principal. And that's not, there's a deeper supremacy level type thing of deep-rooted. These systems have been in place for years, and now they're getting dismantled a little bit. We don't like it. We want to stay where we are. So we had painful meetings with the boards. There were some allies on the board, obviously, who would have been pivotal in getting the change we wanted. And then just at the end of last year, December, I started to get that feeling again of nothing's happening. We've got stone cold wall of silence. Nothing's happening. We need to get reorganised again, and started again picking up the voice notes were going around on WhatsApp and phone calls and everything else to the people who were in the open letter saying, right, this is what we need to do. This is the next steps. We were going to kind of really stick it on them again. And then on Monday the 4th, I got a tweet from a current student at Aura, and she just sent me an attachment with the email saying, after 11 years as principal at Aura and, over a decade at the school, Adrian Hall, who was the principal, is no longer with us. And that was it. It was this relief and wow. I think it was 7 months from the first tweet to then. 7 months of all of us, every single person, putting in the work and trying to implement real change and not just accepting, this principal, he had no intention of leaving. Now we did the head of voice, who was the head of voice for years and was vile, to be honest with you. And she got kicked out straight away. She was suspended and sacked within weeks because she was a scapegoat. She was thrown under the bus because a lot of the quotes were from stuff she said to people. But the fact that she was allowed to function in that school for so long under his leadership says everything you need to know about the type of school he was running. And then he got he had to leave. He had no choice. They would have, whoever had that conversation, it might have been uncomfortable. It might have been, someone who was happy to have that conversation and just said, listen, you've got nowhere to go. You need to leave. So he had to leave, and it was like a relief that we could stop fighting. And it was a relief of wow, we've worked hard, we've got organised, we've spoke up, we've demanded what we want, we made demands. We weren't beating around the bush. Why do we need to beat around the bush? It's our feelings. If you feel some kind of way about a staff member who's in a place of power, they have a duty of care and they've done something wrong, then they should be out of that job. Because if it was a black person, they're quick to sack them. But there's this thing where certain, and it is white men a lot, and some people might feel attacked by this. I've said this before. I had no issue. I said it in front of a group of white old men. I said, it is white middle-aged men who oppress people historically. Not all white middle-aged men. It's not about being divisive. But there is a white supremacy issue that affects all of us. It affects white people because it's about divide and conquer. Us versus them, rich versus poor, black versus white, So it was it felt like an achievement, but there's still a long way to go. Of course, we're not going to walk away now and go, oh, that's it, we've ended racism. Or that's it, Aura's now free of racism, because there's still staff members there who, you could say were probably complicit, who sat by and saw stuff what was going on, but again, that's a bigger issue, because how do you, like we said before, I think before we start recording, how do you challenge your employer? How do you challenge your boss? How do you speak out? How do you stick your neck out without getting, there's retribution, and there will be retribution. So really, the only way you can, you can choose to speak out, but then you might suffer some consequences, which does happen. So, some of the staff will probably need to have a long look at themselves and go, right, what did I do in those 5 years while I was at school to challenge, or did I support those students, or did I speak out about it, or did I just turn a blind eye? And if you are complicit, or if they were complicit, you know, a deep self-reflection is needed.
You were nervous to kind of speak out about this, but it was, I don't want to say it was perfect, because obviously what happened with George Floyd's murder was horrible, but it almost came like at the right time for you to speak about this, because everyone was like listening, everyone had their ears open and were willing to like hear these stories, and it gave all of us time. We're in lockdown, all of us time to just reflect on these awful experiences that we've all had. And I think it's great that you were able to gather all these people and speak out about this, because obviously as an actor, you know, as a Black actor, you know that people have, you know, misconceptions about you. And if you speak out, especially if you're like a woman, you can get labeled as a diva or aggressive, or yeah, you get labeled with so many different like labels. So it's just like, oh, I'm not sure if you want to do this, but how did you like continue to like push yourself to do that, even though you knew that this could have,
like you said, it was last year was what happened, George, was horrible, and it was a catalyst for change. Because we were in lockdown, like I said, everyone was listening, everyone was more reflective, but it just felt this time like enough is enough. We've been on protests. I've been going on protests since I was 4 years old with my mum. And then, you know, in 2016, there was a Black Lives Matter protest in Manchester. I remember going on that, and there was loads. And it's like, enough's enough. Why do we need to be protesting and screaming for justice? There's a long, long, long way to go. But so for me, it was never difficult I did question probably very early on, is this gonna impact my career negatively in terms of like, oh, he's outspoken, or oh, he's controversial or whatever. But do you know what? I don't fucking care. I really don't. It's bigger than that. It's so much bigger than that. It's bigger than my career. And I don't think it will impact my career, actually. And if it does, I don't want to work with those people anyway, you know. So I did question it. I definitely questioned it, but it was just so much bigger. And I think it was for everyone. You know, it was bigger than us, and just, it was bigger than just the Alrath case as well. It just felt bigger. That's all I can say. So it wasn't hard to speak on what needed to be spoken on.
So you said when I asked you one of the first questions, you mentioned that you'd been acting or interested and had an obsession with acting since you were 14, and you got a scholarship when you were 18, which is incredible. And how, though you were experiencing maybe like microaggressions and racism, did that ever give you doubt to continue pursuing, because you love this career so much, you love doing it? Did it ever make you doubt because of what you were experiencing? Or
I think it did. Like I said to you, when I was in that state of depression for like 6 months or whatever it was, I think it was about 6 months, it wasn't that long, my acting started to suffer, because I wasn't mentally there to be able to perform and whatever. You know, I normally, if I play like a fun character or a comedy role, it's hard to, you know, to do that. Even if it's a serious, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't connect. But also, I was mentally switched off from the school. Obviously, you know, the incident for me personally happened in second year. So I had to finish second year, I think maybe in 8 or 9 weeks, 10 weeks maybe of the last term. And then I had to go over the summer, mull over what had just happened, and then go back in September. So I went back in September angry, hurt, just vexed. And I was mentally logged out. I was checked out of the school, you know, I was done. And then I remember doing my first play, and I was just shocking in it, awful. And I remember thinking, this is gonna fuck me up. This is gonna ruin my career or chances of even having a career before I've even started, because it broke me for a stage. I remember going into the new year in 2017. I went on a night out in Manchester with my friend, had an amazing night out, and just let 2016 go. I just let it all go. Spiritually, just was like, that was last year. This is a new year. I remember going into that new term, and I had Showcase, where you perform in front of agents and casting directors in the industry and stuff. And I thought, I'm not allowing that experience to ruin what I think I'm capable of doing. And I just went in with this new, fresh mindset. I worked with a really good director on Showcase, worked with my friend who was Black on our scene. You know, I basically said to everyone in the air, don't come chat to me. I'm not working with you type thing. I'm working with him. So I worked with my brother, and we went and cleaned up. You know, we got lots of interest, and that was it. It started. And then I booked my first job in the February with CBBC, and that gave me loads of confidence and got me back loving doing what I was doing. And then I was just booking work in my third year, which was also amazing because I kind of got to that headspace of like, I'm going to kill them with success. And again, like I said to you before about the drive was to be successful, to expose. So I was just like, I'm going to kill them with success. Every job I get, every job I book is going to be a step closer to being able to do that. But also enjoy those jobs whilst I'm booking them, because it was an amazing few months in my career. But yeah, there was definitely a stage where I thought, ooh, this is not looking good, because it broke me mentally to the point where I couldn't continue. And then luckily I just had that mental shift, which I'm grateful for.
When you think about it, like, it's actually really upsetting because it's an experience that you're going to remember for life now. Like, connected to something that you love, like the contrast of it, of being such a horrible, one of the worst racism you've ever experienced, connected to something that you love so much. Like, it's horrible to have that. And going back to when you were saying you were in meetings with, you know, people and head of years and stuff like that, how did they come across as sympathetic, empathetic, slightly?
At which point the meetings after, so recently, like board meetings and stuff?
Well, yeah, after you put out the open letter, did anyone?
Oh no, the board. I was just like, I was like a bull in terms of just being like, listen, let's cut the shit. We know what we're asking for. How are you going to deliver it? Type thing. I've got the recording, or my mum's got the recording of a Zoom meeting that we had, and it is so awkward because I asked these questions, and there's like 6 or 7 people sat on this board meeting, and I wanted to meet them personally because you can't look me in my eye and sit there physically and try and cheat me and lie to me, but over Zoom you can. And I remember sitting and sticking on them, and there was just these silent, awkward silences where they just could not answer the questions I was putting to them. They just could not answer it. And it was, a lot of them were over their heads in it. They were over their heads and they'd never experienced it, and they were never capable of, like, but no, there was sympathy. We don't need the sympathy. We didn't need the sympathy. We needed action. So we wasn't doing it for sympathy. We didn't care. They just needed to deliver what we're asking for. And them doing that shows, did they deserve props for it? Not really, to be honest with you. Yeah, you've done what you've done, but you didn't really have a choice. And also, what I really struggle with is the fact that they never responded to the open letter until it went public. I think that's disgraceful. They couldn't even just say, listen, 2 or 3 weeks in, we're still investigating, we understand this is really difficult, please bear with. They couldn't even do that. And then that made me think, you're weighing over your heads in. You don't understand the scale of what you're dealing with. So no, I don't want to give them too many props, to be honest with you, because we force them. As a collective, we force them into that decision, and with the help of the media and social media. So no, there wasn't loads of sympathy, but we didn't care. We didn't want sympathy. You
wanted action. Like, you are very proud of being from the North, which is amazing to hear, because it's a great place. And there's so much talent here. I love how in your answer you said that you didn't really, when I asked you what's the best and worst thing about being a Black actor, and you didn't even mention like a negative thing at all, which is like amazing. But it's sad that it's surprising, because most people that I've spoken to who are artists and performers and singers, they've always said, oh, it's because, it's smaller down here, everything's in London, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes I feel like people like you can create the space and create the environment for people to actually be able to feel like, oh, I can be seen if I'm in the North. I can be successful whilst I'm here.
Definitely. I think we need to be proud of the North, and it's like, especially places like Manchester, it's a powerhouse city. So is Liverpool. The great cities with lots of rich culture, and the powerhouses globally, especially Manchester and surrounding areas. Like, there's lots of history and they're great places with great people. And like I said, we do things differently. And there is definitely a bit of a north-south divide. There is also that thing of, like self-reflection, like Black actors in the industry, they might struggle. Don't forget, I've got that light-skin privilege. So I'm mixed race. So maybe I have a different experience to a dark-skinned brother or sister, maybe. Or maybe it's similar. I don't know. But I've just never tried to, let it hold me down. Or maybe it helps me, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. It is what it is, type thing. I've also, this is difficult, there's lots of tokenism in the industry. So there's lots of people who get given a job, because they're ticking a box, they're there to tick a box, because they're black or because they're disabled or because they're gay or whatever it may be. And that I struggle with, and I despise it, in fact, because I don't want to be there to tick a box. And I've had conversations with friends who've done jobs, and they've said they look around the rehearsal room or the set or whatever it may be, and they do feel like they're there to tick a box. I'm lucky in the sense of I've never had that. I've not had it yet, and I hope to never experience it because it will enrage me. I want to get given jobs on merit because I'm there, because I'm good enough, because I'm right for the role, because I'm the right storyteller, whatever it is. I want to be there because I've earned the job. And the jobs I've done, I've just been right for. And I'd rather not work, actually. I'd rather not do something if I'm there to tick a box. Rather not do it. Give me the job because I'm right for it. And I'll know as well. In your heart of hearts if you're reading a script or a character, and if that's you and you can do it and you can do it convincingly. So the industry has a long way to go. And ticking boxes in tokenism, for me, there's a fine line because yes, there needs to be representation, but it's how do we do it authentically and naturally and from a genuine place. There's nothing worse. The word BAME, for example, I can't stand the word BAME. Who from the black community or black or Asian or minority ethnic or mixed race or whatever you are, non-white, let's say, says, oh yes, I'm BAME. Who made the word BAME? Because I didn't. I don't know anyone who did. I had a conversation at work with a group of people. I just went around the room and said, does anyone here like the word BAME? No. Everyone, no one likes it. Yeah. And that's another thing of like putting us into a box, putting us into our own little, that's the BAME corner. And like funding, I've heard stories of people applying for funding for plays and they will say, we will have BAME representation. So they have to then cast someone who's black in a play or black or Asian in the play to receive that funding. But they might not even want to. They might want to cast an all-white cast, and if you want to, that's fine. But you shouldn't be doing it because you have to get funding. That's wrong to me. It's wrong. Representation needs to be genuine, and you want to just cast the right people in the right roles and just naturally, authentically be, like I said, the show I did in 2018, Tatty Hennessy, Shakespeare in the Squares, big shout out. It was so diverse and it was just authentic. There was Welsh, black, white, everything. It was just phenomenal. Loads of different accents, different sexualities, everything. It was just a phenomenal, open-minded, diverse cast. It's one of the best casts I've ever worked with. And it was probably for that reason. And obviously everyone was talented, but it wasn't done as a tick box. You didn't look around and go, God, this is like definitely a tick box, tick box, tick box. It wasn't that. So it's about how, and then, the year after, I remember going to watch the same company and it wasn't as diverse, but that's fine because they cast the people they wanted to cast for that project and it worked. So it's just, representation is important, but tokenism and ticking boxing isn't.
Yeah, it's something to be talked about more because Creative Diversity Network came out with the reports for the representation on screen and off screen, and it actually has declined since last year. So that's really shocking and just disheartening because there's all these schemes coming out constantly thrown at Black, Asian, ethnic minority people, and it's like once we get in these schemes, these people are just left to, they're not really looked after, they're not really there for because of their talents. They're just there because we've invited these Black people now we've done the job.
Yeah, it's horrible and there's a long way to go. Yeah, and whether I'm involved in it or not, I don't know, but it does infuriate me and I'd rather have no part to do with it. In a sense, I just want to just do jobs that I'm right for and that I enjoy, and it's just right. I don't want to be there to tick a box. I think what's important is stories being told by the people who have experienced it. So more Black writers, more Black creators behind the camera, more Black producers, more Black directors, more Black, do you know what I mean? So it's about seeping into all aspects of the industry, not just in front of the camera, behind it as well. And just more Black people in places of power. I did a radio play last weekend with the BBC, and the director and the writer and the also that acted in it was Black, Nigerian guy, my friend. And I just loved it. I thought to myself, I sat there and I just thought, this is what it's about. He's written a story that he connects with. He's casted the right people. to tell that story. And he's directing it, he's acting in it, and he wrote it. And I just think that's what it's about, actually, creating your own work. And then the platforms will come to you because they want to hear your stories. And that's for everyone, from whatever background you're from, whatever your experiences are, whatever your heritage is, whatever it is you want to talk about, go and write it, go and create it yourself, I think, because it's like, is it Green Book? Have you seen Green Book?
I'm not too sure.
It's Green. Yeah, it's about a pianist who goes around like southern states of America playing the piano, and he gets booked at all these restaurants. But he, black man, this is in years ago, and he wasn't allowed to eat in the restaurant. So that he was playing in. He went to a restaurant to go and eat in it, and they said, "You can't eat here. You're a black man. Get out," type thing. But he was like, "I'm playing here tonight to entertain all you people." And it's an amazing story, really powerful story. But it got lots of criticism because it was told by a white writer, a white director, white producers. So it's a black story and a black experience told through the eyes of white people. So it's difficult. Is that authentic? Is that... I still find it a powerful film, if I'm honest with you. But it doesn't quite sit right with me. And also it got lots of criticism, and rightly so. If you look at Queen and Slim, have you seen Queen and Slim?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Best film I've ever seen. Couldn't believe it. I rewatched it recently. I saw it at the beginning of last year, and then I saw it at the end of last year. And the way I just saw it through different eyes at the end of the year was crazy. It was even more powerful. But that's what it's about. Do you know what I mean? That's what it's about. So it's about who tells the stories.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah, that's so important, because most of the programs that we watch, even if they're about black people, black stories, most of the people behind it are not reflecting who's on screen. And it doesn't make sense to me. How are you telling a story through someone who hasn't even experienced, even in the slightest experiences, that what it's like to be a black person? So but moving on from that, I just wanted to ask you, you mentioned that last year you kind of, even though you did do some different projects before the pandemic really took off, you kind of like had your energies elsewhere other than acting. And could you speak a bit about what you focused on more and how you're going to do that in this new year? Are you going to stick to the same kind of thing? What you're looking forward to?
Yeah. So I think, like, obviously a lot of my energy, and it was very consuming, I'm not going to lie, like, I'm very mentally taxing, was on the hour thing. That was a huge chunk in my head of just all my energy was towards that outcome. And the fact that we got it is amazing, because now that space is being cleared and then other things can come into my head. I did have a positive story that I focused on. I got sent a story in a WhatsApp group about a boxer from Manchester called Len Johnson. He's a black boxer, mixed race boxer, in fact. So I really connected with it. He had a West African dad, the same as me, and then he had an Irish Mancunian mother. And he had a phenomenal... I'm a big fan of boxing and sport. He had a phenomenal career. He had 135 fights, 92 or 93 wins, and he was never allowed to box for the British title because of his skin colour. So I couldn't believe this story, and then I've been really focused on that. So we've gone away now, and we've done a thing with Sky Sports where they came to the boxing gym and we told the story. We did a thing. BBC Sport covered it. ITV have just covered it recently at the beginning of this year. It's getting great attention and coverage, rightly so, and his name's bubbling up. And it's bubbling up amongst political people who can make decisions. So there's a campaign to get a statue built of him. And Manchester doesn't have a statue of any black people. And this, again, is about representation, seeing yourself reflected in the history books. So that was a really positive... It's like a positive, negative story, because it was frustrating that I've never heard of it before. But I know about it now. So now, again, a lot of my energy and focus is on getting this story out there. We've applied for funding to tour a play into schools, so like TIE. And we've got the funding. And so we're going to start developing a play to take around schools in Manchester, telling hopefully thousands of children who this man was, what he did, what he achieved, and what he wasn't allowed to do because of the British Empire and because of those white supremacists. And these men, like I said before, have been in these places of power for a very long time. So we're slowly dismantling those systems and telling our stories. So that's really exciting. A lot of my focus is now going to be on that this year, and then obviously my own career. and any work I can get, great. If I don't get any work, fine. You know, I'll focus on other things. But hopefully, you know, there's opportunities. I've started the year great with the radio play, but a lot of my energy is going to be focusing on telling that story and getting it into schools. Just before I spoke to you, I had a meeting with an academic in Manchester who's looking at how we incorporate more Black history and British history in terms of what the empire did to all but 22 countries. You know, they colonized all but 22 countries in the world. So 170, 190 countries, something crazy like that. How we get that onto the curriculum and create a lesson plan for teachers to download and teach Black history to everyone, to white kids, to Asian kids, to Black kids. So, and when I say Black history, it's bigger than just Black history. It's human history. But it's more transparent and it's more taking a long, hard look at the truth. So yeah, feels good, feel quite focused and driven. And I think last year was a real wake-up call. And yeah.
That's really exciting, actually. Like, I'm so intrigued to find out about this play. Like, I think many people would want to know about it because I've never heard about it before.
Yeah.
And for young children to grow up having memories of, oh yeah, at my school one time, this, like, I don't have memories of seeing like Black stories at all in school.
You won't have been taught about any Black hero or Black figure. You might have been told about Martin Luther King, who got shot in the face and brutally murdered by the state. You might have been told about Malcolm X, and you'll know who Muhammad Ali is. But that's all American. And yes, it's American Black history and it's our history, but it's different. You've not been taught about local Black history and British Black history. You know, so I think having a Black hero you can look up to and a figure and an icon and someone you can see yourself reflected in or understand their struggles is important. So it feels like a really powerful story, and it's getting lots of great traction and coverage, and rightly so, because he had an amazing life and career. And he was a fighter. He was a massive activist outside of the ring. He wasn't just a boxer who wasn't allowed to box for the British title. When he retired from boxing, it was the work he did outside the ring. He was massively in lots of political circles in Manchester. He fought. There was a shipping company that sacked all its Black workers. He fought to get them all the jobs back, and they reversed the decision. He got kicked out of a pub because of his skin colour. He then got the help of the mayor, and Black and white kind of came together and united and protest outside that pub, which is about 20 minutes from my house now in South Manchester. And they protested and they overturned the colour bar, which basically meant no Blacks, no dogs, no Irish. Have you ever heard of that saying?
Yeah.
So, you know, that was a thing. And he did a lot. He attended the 5th Pan-African Congress, which had lots of African leaders right here in Manchester who came and spoke about being a Pan-African and how do we lift Africa up again. And phenomenal. He just had an amazing story. So to think that we don't know it, and you don't know it, and I don't know it, and we don't all know who he is shocking to me. But it's fine because we know who he is now, and we can work towards making sure his name is honoured. And there's so many more. Imagine how many more there are that we don't know. Exactly. Black women as well.
Yeah. But I think that's just the start of seeing more people like you doing things like this, because you're incorporating your career with something that you're so passionate about, which is history and being Black and sharing our stories. So that's incredible. But I just want to say thank you so much for doing this interview. Can you give us some shout out for yourself? Like, let us know where we can find you and people can follow you and keep up to what you're doing.
Yeah, Lamin96 on Instagram and Lamin Touray 96 on Twitter. Lamin.
Well, you've all heard it here first, so that's where you can find Lamin and keep up to date.
Keep up the good work, man. I respect it.
Oh, thank you so much. Have a good day.
No worries. Take care.